Hey everyone, welcome back to Realpolitik. Today we're going to be talking about the latest developments in Ukraine from May the 13th, 2023. Before we start, please like and subscribe, help me grow the channel, and let's get right into it. So, in the Avdiivka region, the Russians are claiming that they shot down a Ukrainian Su-27. All right, now this just happened within the hour right here in the town of Klinsk, I believe it's called. A helicopter was shot down. A The Ukrainians are saying that a Russian helicopter crashed, but the Russians are claiming that they shot down a Ukrainian helicopter. Let's just take a look at some footage. And that's footage of the helicopter right there. All right, you can see that. And then this is the helicopter when it was shot down. Right, so that just happened within the hour. Let's take a look at it again. So that doesn't look like a helicopter crashing. It looks like it was shot down to me. But anyways, we'll find out sooner or later, I guess. So back to the map. Okay, so in Melitopol, Zaporizhia region, there was an explosion. And basically, that led to a partial blackout. So, probably a Ukrainian missile strike. Also, an explosion in Berdyansk, right by the coast, and the Azov Sea. And so, yeah, probably sabotage or another Ukrainian missile strike. We're not exactly sure, but there was also yesterday and today several explosions in the Luhansk region, and this city hasn't seen much action for a long time. But basically, what they're saying is that the Ukrainians they struck several Russian positions or facilities related to the Russian military, and what they're claiming is that it was a Storm Shadow, the new missiles that were given to Ukraine by the UK. So these stealth Storm Shadow missiles, and I think the Russians did try to shoot down the uh, the incoming missiles because there's basically this these are remains of ADM-160B. It's a decoy missile. Here, this is what it looks like. It's meant as a decoy, and it has, from what I'm hearing, some electronic warfare capabilities. So these are launched as decoys, and these are basically the remains of what's left. So the Russians, they did shoot down the decoy, but not the missiles themselves, not the Shadow Storm missiles. And at first, people thought it might be a Ukrainian Grom 2 with a range of 300 kilometers, but this also has a range of 300 kilometers, the Storm Shadow. So it might take a while for the Russians to adapt to it. If you remember at first, a lot of these new weapons that are introduced, they make a splash, but then the Russians adapt to it, right? They're not really game changers per se. I mean, you could argue the HIMARS was a game changer, but at first, when the Ukrainians began using the HIMARS, there were a lot of like something like 20 or more in a few days, 20 or more Russian ammo depots were destroyed, but the Russians adapted to it. Now they're using electronic warfare to block the to basically jam the missiles that are being launched the HIMARS missiles. Anyways, so allegedly with these missiles, the Storm Shadow missiles from the UK, Russian facilities were struck, including a machine building plant. Let's take a look at a video, by the way. And yeah, this is it. So it did hit whatever target it intended to hit, and the damage is pretty significant. There's also rumors that a training center was struck. Now, the Russians, their air defenses in this area might not be too formidable because there hasn't been a lot of activity in this region, and it's pretty far away from the front, so that might be why. But uh, the Russians are probably scrambling to try to figure out what to do. The issue with the missiles, though, the Storm Shadow missiles, is that they're air launched, and as we know, Ukraine is short on jets, and at the same time, uh, you know, I think there's a sea version, but Ukraine doesn't have much of a navy, so and with the amount of Ukrainian jets that are shot down, and and oftentimes they're targeted while they're on the ground at air bases, so um, that's why you're not seeing the Ukrainians launching dozens of these at a time. They're launching what they can, I'm guessing, anyways. Okay, so what else? Let's take a look at some maps. So this is the deep state map. The previous one was the live UA map. So let's take a look at the. Oh yeah, by the way, the Russians, it seems they either retaliated or they were planning it anyways, but they launched several Guran 2 kamikaze drones, the Shahed 136 or Guran 2, uranium. Uh, and there were explosions reported in Kiev, air defense active in Kiev, and then in western Ukraine as well, in the Khmelnytsky region. Delays in railway connections, so Ukrainian rail has to be rerouted, probably a railway station targeted yet again, and in Lviv. So those Shahed 136, they can go really far. I mean, from the Russian front till here, I mean, that would be, oops, okay, that would be 700 kilometers, right? Even from Belarus, you're still looking at about like 250 kilometers. So from Belarus, 160 miles, over 440 miles from the Russian front lines. Anyways, okay, back to the map. So this is the deep state map. Let's take a look at the last 48 hours, 72 hours. Let's see what's happened. So this was pretty much the map before the Ukrainian offensives, before Ukraine launched its counteroffensive in Bakhmut. And then this is the result. So a lot of people assumed, a lot of analysts thought that the Russians would not be able to hold on to the salient here. And I don't think they, who knows, but it doesn't seem like they should be able to because it's mostly open plains, open fields, and Ukrainians are attacking from both sides. But so far they've held their ground. But it makes sense for the Russians to actually retreat to the higher ground right in front of Klashivka. And Klashivka itself is actually really hilly. See all these hills? When the Russians came from this direction, from the east, they had a really hard time. It took over a month to take Klashivka. But anyways, right now the Russians are holding steady. Um, so Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, you see that in the to the north of Bakhmut, north of Kromove, is where the Russians withdrew from a decent chunk of territory. You see it right here. And now the Ukrainians control the territory, the chunk of land right in between this lake and this reservoir right here. And it actually, from a military standpoint, it kind of makes sense for the Russians to withdraw because Yevgeny Prigozhin he put out another video, another rant about how he's not getting enough ammunition. He only has 10% of what he needs. But he said, despite that, Wagner is still advancing in Bakhmut, and he said that the only reason that the Ukrainians did not steamroll Russian positions is because he sent Wagner reinforcements to this area to stabilize the lines and to this area to stabilize the lines. So he's saying that Wagner basically saved the day. But the Russian MOD disagrees. The Russian MOD, what they're saying, and you can see it right here, all the blue that's taken. This is the ISW map, same lake right here. So what the Russian MOD is saying is that they chose to withdraw because they went to a better defensive position. And you notice there's a little slope here, and then there's a river that the Ukrainians would have to cross. It's a small river, not a big deal, but the lake and the reservoir act as a natural barrier, as a natural defensive barrier. And this basically is essentially a bottleneck, right? It's a choke point because all the Ukrainian troops would have to go through here, and then Russian artillery could pound the heck out of them, right? So it actually kind of makes sense to withdraw to this line right here. But anyways, yeah, that's less than a kilometer. So basically, uh, yeah, that's basically a bottleneck right there. So this is what we're seeing with this map. Let me adjust the map so they're all more or less the same. Okay, here you can see. And then there's the Rybar map, which shows right here the Berkivsky Reservoir. So there's a rail line. I think the Ukrainians want to gain control over the rail line, which would be helpful to them. Um, this is a new map that just came out a few hours ago. This shows the gains by the Ukrainians. So you can see the same thing, the reservoir right here. And this map shows some of the recent gains by Wagner in Bakhmut. So in Bakhmut itself, if we take a look, Wagner is still advancing. And actually, they've taken over the post office to the north right here. There's a post office in an Olympic, what was it, Olympic school and a post office. Yeah, so they're still advancing, and there's not much left really between them and the outskirts of town, right? I mean, that's 700 meters, right? Um, so really like half a mile or something, just over half a mile. But anyways, that is that. And oh yeah, in the north right here, I believe the Russians are claiming that a Challenger tank was used and that it was destroyed, but it was immediately retrieved. They don't want it to fall into Russian hands, obviously. So far, wait, so far the Ukrainians have advanced here and like this. But according to the Russians yesterday, the Ukrainians launched 26 different attacks, and they had over something like 1,000 troops, and they lost over 500 soldiers and 20 armored vehicles. The Russians are saying all over the front yesterday, Ukraine lost 1,000 soldiers and something like 40 tanks and armored vehicles. So if that's true, even if half of that is true, that's really devastating. And the gains, I don't know if they're worth it really, but who am I to decide, right? Anyways, this area right here, I'm not sure if the Ukrainians have launched an attack, but it's expected that they will. It just makes sense. It's a major highway. And if the Ukrainians can come here and punch through the reservoir, they can link up and then go down here and this main road and threaten Bakhmut from the north. And then the whole point is that if they can take this area and go through Kalishivka, get to this road. There's a lot of settlements here too, Opitne, for example. But the point is to basically attack um, Bakhmut from the north and the south. So, anyways, let's look at a few videos. Uh, let's see what Bakhmut is like right now. It's basically hell on earth. By the way, oh yeah, this is from today, a few hours ago, just showing what it's like. So I can't play the volume because of copyright purposes. I don't want to get a copyright strike. It's a big headache on YouTube. So I apologize for that, but sometimes the sound is just some corny, weird music anyways. So anyways, that's that. Let's take a look at this other explosion. This is the Ukrainian controlled area. They're just like firebombing it, right? They're just being ruthless. The Russians are just because the Ukrainians control such a tiny area, they're just basically firebombing it. I'm sure the Ukrainians are sustaining massive casualties. I mean, look at that. That's insane. Um, so let's look at some more footage of Bakhmut. And you can see it's all rubble. There's nothing really left, right? Yeah, I mean, the trees are burnt out as well. Um, this whole city basically has to be torn down and rebuilt. So, and this really discourages an attacker from even wanting to attack because you take territory and what do you get? Ruins? All the blood and treasure expended for ruins, right? So, although they have done a decent job building Mariupol, there's footage of that. I'm not going to go over that today, but they've built Mariupol to some extent, apartment blocks and whatnot. So, this is more footage of inside Bakhmut from inside Bakhmut. So, there's just nothing left, right? Construction workers are going to have a field. I mean, they're going to be working here for years and years after this war's over. Everyone's going to have work to do. That's for sure. I think contractors would make a lot of money. Any kind of contractor. Yeah. Maybe Prigozhin is going to start some kind of business here. He was Putin's chef before. That is just, I believe it was a population of 60, 70,000 before the war. But, the French in World War II, when they were defeated by the Nazis, the Germans, they decided that Paris should be an open city. They didn't want Paris to be annihilated, right? But the Ukrainians don't have that mindset. Anyways, enough of that. Yeah, so I don't know if I should show this. I'm not going to show this video. There's too much of a risk, but there's a video and there was the Ukrainian offensive in the north and the Ukrainian offensive was repulsed. You can see there haven't been any gains here. But anyways, the video shows like dozens of Ukrainian soldiers, their corpses on the ground while the Russians stand over them. So yeah, I can't show that unfortunately. You could probably find it on Twitter, but Anyways, guys, that is it for today. If you watched till the end, thank you. Please like and subscribe, comment, and share, and I will see you in the next one.